Hello, I'm Danny de Hek, aka the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger, here to name and shame anyone running or promoting a Ponzi scheme or a scam. Now, I don't know anything about American politics, and to be honest, I've been trying to avoid watching it. But today, I jumped on Twitter and I started flicking through all the news reels, and I thought, man, I don't know if it's good that I don't live in America. Would I be concerned if I lived in America at the moment? And has the federal government actually been running scams? I'd have to say, I think it's a no-brainer. And will be honest, I'm not a supporter of any political party. I was brought up in a religious cult. And it was only when I got to the age of 35, 40, I actually started voting, because we were taught not to vote and have any say in the world affairs. And maybe that's why I've never really got into politics, or I've never really followed it. I just do as I'm told. I stop at red traffic lights and go at green ones. And I keep to the speed limit when I haven't got a very fast exotic car. However, watching this today and listening to Elon Musk and also to Donald Trump, I actually have to say this is actually right up my alley. Some of the logical terms that they used in this interview that lasts for about 33 minutes, to be exact, was, I thought, quite good. And I think, like I've got an example at the moment. If you go to dannydehek.org, you'll find a website that's hosted by GoDaddy. And I have been corresponding with GoDaddy, and I've said to them, this website is claiming it's me. They're using my logo. They're using my images off my website. And they're also doing defamatory statements saying that I were a promoter or am a promoter of OneCoin. And they're obviously trying to get back at me because I bust scams. So some scammers decided to set up a website. It's got my name. It's got my images. It claims it's me. So I've been corresponding with GoDaddy for the last week and a half going, well, why don't you take it offline? They come back today and they said that I would have to get a court injunction to remove dannydehek.org from the internet. And also, even though I've proved that the photos are mine, I said, why don't you go back to the person that created the website and ask them to prove they are actually me? And here's my website, here's my images, the whole nine yards. I was absolutely amazed. And in the email I wrote, and I'm going to do a whole separate video on this, I said, why don't you use common sense? Now, what's wrong with a world where we can't use common sense? What's wrong with a world when you can't see something and call it out and get some action quickly? Why does everything have to be dragged out like chewing gum and take so long to act? Now, I did a blog on my website, dehek.com, and explained all the correspondence I've had with, YouTube, Buzzsprout, Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, LinkedIn, all the organizations that bend at the knees when someone complains about defamation. I get defamation and I write to GoDaddy, one of the biggest providers of hosting in the world, and I get told that to take down one website that I need to get a court injunction to do so. Isn't that incredible? This video here, I quite like it. Now, my disclaimer is I'm not in America. I'm not in America. I'm a New Zealander. And I'm trying to get some sort of, I talk to a lot of Americans. What I do like about this video, though, is Elon has his child on the video. Now, I wonder if he's going to get so upset the fact that his child's going to be broadcasted over the internet like Megan Lynch, who's an American. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Anyway, so let's get started. So the video, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to broadcast this under fair use, but I'll give it a go. So if this video disappears one day, you'll know why. We're always learning. But let's get into it and let's have a listen. Now, the wee kid of Elon Musk's, he's a real cutie, and I quite like this video. I'll have to admit, I don't see anything wrong in what they're saying, but if I have been sitting in a nice warm pile of shit, working for the government, and all of a sudden my cozy little wee nest of a job that I've got is jeopardized, potentially, it would be really interesting to see what actually happens going forward. Hey, Riz, nice to see you here, mate. All right, here we go. Listen.
X, are you okay? This is X, and he's a great guy, high IQ. He's a high IQ individual.
And he's got this, check out this cool chain he's got.
So thank you very much. We had a busy day today. The king just left, and we've had a great discussion, terrific discussion concerning Gaza and everything else. We had discussions also about Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's going to be a big moment. We'll see what happens. I don't expect much happening with these people.
I don't know about you guys, but when people say these people, I know he's a Prime Minister of America, but when they talk about these people, it just shows a lack of disrespect for me. That's just my take on it. But when I hear that, I think, ooh, imagine if I had a meeting with these people. Like, what's that mean? I don't know.
But we'll see what happens. And we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's DOGE, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. We want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation. I'll ask Elon Musk to...
Oh, I just found out that if you want to pause a video, you can press K on the keyboard. That's pretty exciting. So, Rob, Riz, welcome. Both Trump and Elon are controlled by Baron Trump. Now, is that the son, or who's that? I don't know. They are planning for Baron to take over very soon. I don't know. I presume that's his son. And Rob, good to see you, mate. This guy who wants to break international law and promote genocide of Gaza. Who's that? Interesting. Don't know what you're talking about there, Rob. And as I said, I'm not really political, but from a New Zealander's point of view, when we watch these videos, I don't know who to watch. Somebody told me the other day not to read the newspapers because the newspapers aren't reporting the truth with it. But I thought, well, if I'm watching a video with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, surely that must be better. Oh, the K doesn't work unless you've got your mouse on the right keyboard. Let's try this.
Say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of DOGE, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, okay.
I like X. He's like, what the hell are we doing here, Dad? I should be on a playground somewhere, but Dad took me along. And I think he's got a silver necklace around his neck as well. But anyway, that was interesting.
We'd have to, if you sorry. Tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy.
Don't you think that is... I mean, remember, I know nothing here, and I'm definitely not political, and I'm not either way, and I don't live in America, so I shouldn't really have a say. But this video is all about Danny de Hek, aka the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger, investigating maybe a scam going on within the federal government. But isn't this what voting's all about? That when somebody gets voted in and the people spoke and they said they wanted a change in this, and then they go and do that, and now they get criticised for doing that? I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
This is not to say that there aren't some good. There are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at this, if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want.
Like if I weren't listening to this now, I'd think, well, hey, all these people that went after Trump when he lost the last election, maybe this is his twisted way of saying that you guys are just as corrupt as anyone else. And maybe all these years Trump's been manipulating and pushing everything to the edge so he can grow his businesses, and he's so sick of the bureaucracy, is that the right word, that he sees in the government, that he's decided to go, well, now I'm in charge, I'm going to disrupt these people that have made my life a living hell when trying to move forward as an entrepreneur. Maybe this is his way of, getting back at those organizations. How do you guys feel about that?
And it does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense.
20 years ago, I was told that if they stopped spending all the money that they spend on defense just for one day, they would solve all the hunger problems in the world. So I wouldn't be surprised that the amount of money they spend on defense is just insane, obviously.
But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that...
Well, X is now pulling on Daddy's jacket. But if he had X as a kid, then he's got himself a nice domain name, hasn't he? X.com. But yeah, it's an unusual name. What about Megan and Regan, two twins? We've been doing a bit of stuff on them at the moment. I'm always wondering who Mum would call Megan and Regan for two twins. Isn't that crazy?
Walked away with about 30 million,
right?
Etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from.
I like this part here. I watched this already. But this is what I'm saying is, like, people, I had somebody I knew who was working for a company, and he had a boat, a Range Rover, and all these assets that everyone else in the company who was earning the same wage didn't have. And it finished up that he was fortunately taking money from the company. But I'm just thinking this is a great way to follow the money and actually see, if somebody is living an extravagant lifestyle, the privacy laws will probably stop people prying into that. But using logic. This is what this whole video to me is why I'm doing this, is I'm thinking, well, why can't we use logic? If something doesn't make sense, like all these scams that I go after, it doesn't make sense. So we should just fall in line and let it just ravel on, or should somebody pull them up and ask them a few curly questions?
Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But they seem to be mysteriously, they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, if you look at, say, Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be...
Would Martha Luther King turn in his grave? That's probably a good question, isn't it?
In place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. Oh. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people?
If I didn't know any better, though, I would be looking at this thing, is the real Elon Musk? Is this a comedy show? Is this really happening? And yeah, it's just so funny to watch this. I mean, I actually quite like it. I actually, I don't know enough about it. All I'm thinking about is people need to give full transparency about where the money goes. And if they're doing that for not selfish gain, then isn't that a good thing? I don't know. What do you think?
And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately. I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, one of the things is we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this. Obviously, there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, let's.
So imagine a government department suddenly realizing they have to work like entrepreneurs and do 12-hour days, if not more. And if you're in Elon Musk's field, you'll be sleeping under your desk. If you haven't read the Elon Musk's book, it's pretty cool on how he works and how we expect people to work. But when you've been entrepreneurial and worked for yourself for 30 years, It's bloody hard work. And when you've got a government job, you kind of go there at 9 and come home at 5. And in the modern world, I don't believe that's fair. And then, like, if I earned $50,000 a year, which is about right for me, and anyone working in any other industry, especially a government job, is in $80 or $120 a year, and they get sometimes a company car with that, it's pretty good wages. But would I swap? Well, I kind of like working for myself and picking my own hours. It's like they say to you, I work for myself. I get to pick what 12 hours a day I work, that sort of style.
If people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we can take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else. And you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way.
I would like to see the pictures, just saying.
Anyway, so I think, that's an example. Like at a high level, if you say, like, how do we increase prosperity, is we get people to shift from roles that are low to negative productivity to high productivity roles. And so you increase the total output of goods and services, which means that there's a higher standard of living available for everyone. That's the actual goal. Everyone's very quiet, by the way. So are people normally this quiet?
Your detractors, Mr. Musk.
I have to what?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're...
See, I don't even know what a detractor is. What is that? People who don't trust him. Was that what a retractor is?
You're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted, we have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. And a lot of times, people that don't get what they voted for, but in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for. And that's what democracy is all about.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are, in effect, policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization.
They got a website address?
And the kind of things we're doing are, I think, very, very simple and basic. They're not, what I mentioned, for example, about Treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations on the do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, that actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money is spent well. So it's got nothing to do with, like, say, a contract for some company of mine at all.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal contracts. When it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president I know has directed you to look into, are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well, all of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second.
I have to sort of think that something shady is going on here. And in the way that, obviously, I said to my partner today, I said, look, this is like somebody's managed to hack into the White House, and it just happens to be the person they got elected, Donald Trump. And now he's going to cause so much disruption. It's actually like, it's like a war within your own country, because he's technically going after the government that he represents, isn't it? It's not very political, but I'm looking at the side of it where if there is corruption, then find it. But wouldn't these departments already have a lot of policies to identify fraud? You know, and if you can go through there and find somebody who's 150 years of age and they're still receiving a benefit, I mean, surely they could go to where that money was going and see who was receiving the money and spending the money and prosecute them, rather than, you know, look at this. Well, do they need to look at the complete systems of everything? Don't know. I'm not political. I find this fascinating to even watch this. And if I didn't know any better, it kind of does look like, you know, one of those American soap, what are they called, sitcoms, you know, like, I'm waiting for Seinfeld to come walking in. You know, I don't know. It's just, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me either. But Rob's got some passionate comments in there.
Hey, Elon, that seems like maybe that's, you know, that there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately. You know?
Including you yourself.
Yes. But transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency, so you can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area. If we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watch that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud.
What's the third
and
word,
abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge who's an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why? Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, you know, because nobody ends a contract. You get a lot of that. You have a contract that's a 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in a small, in all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big.
Yeah.
But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months, you know it's a consultant. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years.
I'm reading your comments, Rob. That's what
And the guy doesn't say that he got money for 20 years, you know? They don't say it. They just keep getting checks month after month. And you have various things like that, and even much worse than that, actually, much worse. And I guess you call that incompetence, maybe.
Yeah.
It could be corruption. It could be a deals made on both sides, you know, where the guy gets the money, he kicks. I think there's a lot of kickback here. I see a lot of kickback here.
There's a lot of kickbacks.
Tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts, so he has to get a kickback. So that's what I got elected for, that and borders and military and a lot of things, but this is a big part of it. And I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse.
Now, Rob, we do know a federal judge, don't we? Grace Zumba. Do you reckon it's her? Grace Zumba is a judge that is still running and helping promote a Ponzi scheme and a scam called We Are All Satoshi. She was on Eyewitness News. But maybe she is the one behind it all.
All of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars.
And if we did criticize this in a way, I know he's the president of the United States, but okay, so on the 5th of January, $1.6 million was transferred into such and such account. We monitored the account and we found that account went to such and such, such and such. And this money was given to a private citizen. That sort of stuff would be really interesting. Well, because we can just believe what we hear and trust who's saying it. But it would be quite neat in some ways to actually have some evidence of some sort.
And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find. That will have quite an impact on the budget. And you'll go to a judge where they handpick a judge and he has certain leanings. I'm not knocking anybody for that, but he has certain leanings. And he wants us to stop looking. How do you stop looking? I mean, we've already found it. We have a case in New York where a hotel has paid $59 million, $59 million because it's housing migrants, illegal migrants, all illegal, I believe.
He really doesn't like migrants. I don't think he's going to like anyone. I remember when I went to Canada, and I went in there, and I just left America and went into Canada for a day. I went to Niagara on the other side. And I got welcomed in there. Welcome, have a good time, and enjoy our country. And I go, oh, thanks very much. It's really nice. And they go, where are you going today? And you're like, oh, I'm just going to have a look at the Niagara Falls and some wax museums. Anyway, on the way back, I crossed over the bridge, got on a train, and then all the Americans come on, all the armed up Americans. And this was, 23 odd years ago, 24 years ago. And yeah, well, what are you here for? Show us your passport. No manners, no niceties, just like interrogation. And I remember when I first landed in America and I was in the customs area, they literally heard people, to the left, to the right, get our way, go this way. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, where have I turned up? But, I've traveled 35 countries. Most people are quite nice. Hey, Microsoft certified trainer, nice to see you here. Can't go into this Zoom meeting, but I did see this video and I watched it and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to do my 2 cents worth. It fascinates me, and only in America is what they say. But let's carry on.
We're being paid twice the normal room rate at 100% occupancy.
Unbelievable.
So it's a racket.
Mr. Musk, can I ask you a question?
If I may sort of just going for the president's comments, at a high level, you say, well, what are the 2 ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1 trillion? And it's really 2 things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop. But with the support of the president, we can cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1, and then with deregulation, because there's a lot of sort of regulations that don't ultimately serve the public good. We need to free the builders of America to build, and if we do that, that means I think we can get the.
Do you think Elon's son one day will look back at this and go, I picked my nose in the front of the presidents while they were addressing the nation? Do you wonder if he is going to eat it? Let's have a look.
Economic growth to be maybe 3-4%, maybe 5%.
It's in the mouth. It's in the mouth.
And that means if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth and you cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion.
Imagine if he flicked it at Donald.
Between now.
It's coming up. Look at that. Fingers up nose.
And next year, there is no inflation. There's no inflation in 2026.
Rub it on that guy's jacket next year. See what happens.
And if the government is not borrowing as much, it means that interest costs decline. So everyone's the mortgage, their car payment, their credit card bills, anything, their student debt, the monthly payments drop. That's a fantastic scenario for the average American.
Hey, we just had Rizm here. He sent me a nice message, actually. I think he said I'm his brother from another lover. But, you know, is Elon Musk taking his dust? Is the question. Good question. Oh, dear. Yes, Elon Musk is actually a migrant. When you think about this is quite ironic. I don't know if people realize that. He's actually from South Africa originally, I believe. Interesting.
I mean, imagine they're going down the grocery aisle and the prices from one year to the next are the same, and their mortgage, all their debt payments dropped. How great is that for the average American?
We had no idea. We had no idea we were going to find this much, and it's open. It's not like complicated. It's
not
simple
that complicated.
Stuff.
It's
like,
a lot of work. Yeah.
We can't believe it. A lot of work. A lot of smart people involved. Very, very smart people. But you're talking about anywhere maybe $500 billion. It's crazy the kind of numbers you're talking
really crazy.
about. You know, normally when you're looking at something, you'll find you're looking for 1 out of 100. Here, you're almost reversing it. You look for one that's good.
Yeah.
And you can look at the title and you say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And the public gets it. You know, the public gets it. You've seen the polls. The public is saying, why are we paying all this money? This for years, this has gone on.
Mr. Musk, President Trump, Senator.
Yeah, go ahead. Wait, go ahead.
Senator Rand Paul today said that DOGE cuts will ultimately need a vote in Congress. Do you agree with that? Is that the plan?
I really don't know. I know this. We're finding tremendous fraud and tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although there'll be some people that wouldn't vote. And how could a judge want to hold us back from finding all of?
It does seem like if I didn't know who this was, I would probably say, you know, prove it. I would probably say malicious intent. And as because I have no real say or maybe no real care in the world, but this is, you know, this is going to, is it really going to affect the world? Because there was another thing on today where he's put in a tariff, a 25% tariff on all the metal that has been brought into America. And I'm thinking, well, the people that are importing metal from now have to go back and buy it locally or pay a 25% tariff. Now that could, the detrimental effects of doing that, obviously they want to keep it in America. But what's going to happen? All that metal is potentially all going to be sold to other countries and probably goes off to China. Who knows? But you know, their closest ally is Canada, and he's talking about making Canada the 51st state, whatever they say. So interesting times, but that one move there is going to affect, they reckon $8 billion worth of metal is imported a year. That was on this guy channel. But yeah, I just don't know. I just thought it was amazing to do that. And just to do that with a flick of a pen.
This fraud and finding all of this incompetence. Why would that happen? Why would even Congress want to do that? Now, Congress, if we do need a vote, I think we'd get a very easy vote because we have a track record now. We've already found billions of dollars of abuse, incompetence, and corruption. A lot of corruption.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply?
Well, I always abide by the courts, and then I
think that's where I sort of listened to that, and I thought he always abides by the court. A guy that got 140 sanctions, and then when he got made in, he just turned them all off or made them all go away. Always abides by the courts. And then he comes out with his next comment, which basically says it in a nutshell, really.
have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. You know, if a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So, yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah, if I can add to that, what we're finding is that a bunch of the fraud is not even going to Americans. So I think we can all agree that if there's going to be fraud, it should at least go to Americans. But a bunch of the fraud rings that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of the federal government, especially in the entitlements programs, are actually foreign fraud rings. They're operating in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries. We should stop that.
Mr. Musk,
and this is big numbers. Talk about $100 to $200 billion a year.
Sure.
Serious money.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact check this, it apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. This statement it wasn't sent to Hamas, actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there. And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, you think.
I did like the condom stuff, though, because they
condom stuff.
Well, what he basically says in the video is they sent $50,000 worth of condoms over to a country. And then they realized that they finished up that these condoms were actually to help HIV, and it was part of a sort of a humanitarian sort of effort more than here's 50,000 condoms for another country. So, are you enjoying this, Rob?
I think it's the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen come out of a country. And the sad thing is that there are millions of people in that country who elected this crap. And this is the person who wants to ignore international law and go into Gaza against international law and basically came out today and supported Israel attacking again the turkey shoot of anybody who is in Gaza and can't bloody get out. I think it's just absolutely mine. I haven't been this pissed off with politics ever in my entire life. And if there's a world war in the next 12 months, that person who's sitting behind that desk there will have caused it.
Because, I mean, the people must get sick of this disruption and uncertainty to a certain degree as well. I'm sort of glad we're not in America, but, like Richard was actually rang me when you was doing your live the other day and you was talking about this and he was telling me, Rob doesn't understand it all. And I go, well, I don't either. And he said, I can't listen to the news. And I said, well, what do? Do I get on a phone call with Elon and Donald and say this Kiwi, this little YouTuber in New Zealand wants to know what's going on? But then when I saw this video, I thought, I think anybody in business should be scrutinized, and that's what I saw in this video, which made it interesting for me. But the detrimental effects of their actions, I don't know anything about. You're more intellectual than me.
Well, it's like, and you need to put this into context. It's like a person who actually comes into your business, Danny, has no idea how you operate, comes in and 5 minutes, figuratively speaking, into looking at your books, is calling you a fraudster because they don't understand where you made all of these payments and blah, 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 blah. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. And yet they haven't charged you and they haven't come out with any evidence, but they've made all these accusations, because that's what Elon Musk is doing in this video. He's coming out with all these things.
Do you think he'll bring the 150-year-old person out?
Well, the premise of innocent until found guilty has gone straight out the window. And I think there's, off the top of my head, I think there's about 2 million federal employees. How would you feel working in a government department? Because you basically got all of your friends who don't work in government departments who are hearing this crap and thinking, that you're probably a fraudster.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's a big call out, isn't it? I mean, as you know, I'm not against calling out scammers, but, I like to go on a hunch rather than the facts, because we don't get the facts until the aftermath. But you would think, if we were to bust this down as a scam, well, I was, you think you would have a whistleblower coming out and siding with these guys. Now, just because a whistleblower might be on the payroll, might have been on the payroll, you think there would be somebody who would have come forth now, and that would be an interesting saga, because that would be more interesting.
One?
No. So, I mean, but you'd think you'd have at least somebody who comes out and says something. You've got two guys, the wealthiest people in the world right here, causing disruption in some ways. Whether, like, we kind of need some evidence more than a hearsay. But a lot of people will obviously believe this because it's the president of the United States. And is Elon the richest guy in the world?
Elon is the richest guy in the world. And yeah, heaps of people believe this. And the comments that I got since I did a video the other night have been quite amazing. And you're kind of torn between saying what you really feel and basically shutting up. And I think I find this amazing that Americans go, oh, well, this is our business. It's not your fucking business. It's the fucking world's business. America wants to basically be the world leader, and that USAID is them having their fingers in all the pies around the world. So, yeah, they have invested in a lot of weird things like condoms, but they've also invested in keeping water treatments safe, health initiatives all around the world, because basically they want something as well. And that could be help from those countries, help from those villages or tribes or whatever, or they just don't want the disease to spread around those countries and ultimately come back and harm Americans. So, there's nothing that America does that's really isolated just to America. It does affect the world.
I'm thinking about that. Did you hear about that tariff on the metals and how
aluminium and steel?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of the can of drink I had tonight. So, because now that can of drink has to be made in America, or it's going to have a 25% tariff put on top of the metal that makes the tin. Is that not right?
Well, you see, this is where, if anybody gets taught economics, there's two dirty words in economics. One is subsidy and the other is tariff, because they are the most inefficient thing for managing anything. Like, for example, if he sticks a 25% tariff on anything that's coming into the country that he thinks could or should be produced in America, that's the consumer, that's the American person who's paying that money. And it's going to the government. That's the whole thing. It's a tax. It's a tax, not, like when you put a tariff on, say, China products coming into America, you're not taxing China. You're taxing the American consumer of China products.
Yeah, well, that's what I sort of, like I've said, I'm not really full of, economy and all that. I did have a funny comment from Microsoft certified trainer though, and he did say that it's the first time he's had 3 children in the Oval Office at the same time. I think that's quite good. You like that one?
Yeah, well, there's a comment about why all this is happening and where it will ultimately end up. And it is pretty damn scary about what is going to happen. And, you know, I'm not pushing a conspiracy theory, but you do go to the end. You know, like, for example, you and I have a common friend who goes on about inflation. Well, and yet that person is supporting the tariffs or supporting the person who's implementing the tariffs, and tariffs create inflation.
Does he drive a truck, this guy?
No.
Oh.
They're in a band.
Is he in the UK?
Could possibly be.
Right. Yeah, now I've got you. Yeah, well, let's carry on and listen to what else, because it gets a wee bit more comical, because soon as his son's already been picking his nose on stage, so let's see what happens, eh? Thought that was quite exciting.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000.
But who gives a shit, Elon? Who gives a shit whether you just lied to people, eh? Because most politicians would if they were pulled up on it, but you're not a politician. You just come in and you're an unpaid government employee that basically has got permission to stand on a stage here and say whatever the fuck you like.
Right, that video's going to get a rating.
You know, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. You know, I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, when you think about it. You know, if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, you know, why are we doing that?
Mr. Musk, can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads, yeah. So there are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that, you know, this is what the president wants to happen. So you know, we talk almost every day, and I double check things to make sure, is this something, Mr. President, you want us to do this? Then we'll do it.
USAID has been one of your main targets. Are you concerned at all that some of the cuts or that shutting that agency altogether may lead to diseases or other bigger problems starting in other countries that then come to the United States?
So they provide a lot of aid, health aid to other countries, and then they would ask for a discount or a trade agreement waiver, or so if they have got things like you know, in a tax treaty with another country, that country theoretically say, well, you're not providing us any aid anymore, so we're going to start charging you for something that you buy from us that you need. Like, for example, if New Zealand decided that if Donald says, oh, we want milk powder and we want friggin' butter from New Zealand, because of this, we'll let you into the country and won't trade you. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump says, well, hold on a minute. We help New Zealand out with sterilising their water, and this is how we scratch their back and they scratch our back. So all those sort of deals will probably come unstuck, which might have even taken years to, you know, form those alliances and undo a whole lot of work that everyone else has done in the past for a reason. You know, it sounds like this is more about disrupting than
it is absolutely disruptive. And when he introduced the tariffs on Mexico, and Mexico sent supposedly 10,000 troops to the border, and then he revoked the tariffs, or at least he paused them, everyone was saying, "Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's bully boy tactics, isn't it?" You know, because like Mexico were probably put in a position where they had to do something that they didn't want to do. So if you consider that, if it's not Mexico, the country, it was, you know, like a person, and you're forced to do something, where's your goodwill next time you're going to deal with that person? You're going to think, if I can trade with somebody else, even if I'm taking a cut in price, I'll probably go and do it, because I can't trust this person to actually not do something underhand or be like an arrogant schoolyard bully to do something anytime, anywhere, for any purpose they want. And that's what America is doing with China, Canada, Mexico, and apparently, you know, like probably us eventually.
Yeah, as I've said, I just started watching Twitter a couple of days ago, and I'm going flipping through all these adverts, and this one here I stumbled across, and I thought, this one, it's quite, yeah, it's fascinating for me. I just don't follow it at all. But if this was a business, then definitely disruption anyway. Better carry on, eh?
Yeah, so that's an interesting example. So that's something where we work closely with the State Department and Secretary Rubio. And we have, for example, turned on funding for Ebola prevention and for HIV prevention.
So did he say he's turned funding off?
I would like anybody out there who's defending this BS to come and justify what he just said.
So why? Is what you're asking.
Well,
and is that part of the corruption, or is that something that's reneging on an agreement? It's reneging on something they said they would do for a country, theoretically. I can't see that being fraud. And isn't this all about fraud? It's just, maybe it's just, I don't know. It sounds like Elon wants to wipe the table clean and then rerun the country from scratch.
He wants to turn up at a dinner party and throw wine over all the guests, get them to walk out and change their clothes and come back and have it exactly how he wants. That's not a great analogy, but at the end of the day, it's disruptive for what sake? It's like this isn't about going through the government and uncovering fraud or waste or anything like that, because that actually happens anyway. But if you wanted to up the ante, there's certain ways that you would go and do it, because whether you like it or not, all of those government employees are actually working for the government. Those are the people that somebody employed at the behest of the politicians over the preceding terms, maybe for decades. And it's bloody rude. Like, if it happened in a workplace, everybody would go out on strike.
Another thing too, that, like, Elon Musk isn't a politician. He's a friend. It's like saying we've got the transport minister, the employment minister, and then you've got Elon, who comes in from the private sector and just starts helping the president do presidential decisions. And it's kind of like, what should be happening if we were in New Zealand here, is every decision he makes, he puts it through the cabinet. They do all the nays and all the yays, and they vote a policy change in. But he's just come in as an individual and signed off everything he thinks is silly. And, all due respect to the president, but does he really understand politics? And does he understand, the detrimental effects? All he really cares about is business and making America great again, which is kind of like, it's just, you might as well get rid of the government and give, and let Elon and Donald just run it. The two men run the whole country and forget about all the structure that they've built up, and the reason why they've the voting system. That's kind of like I'm seeing it anyway. And as I said, I'm not political, but I mean, the detrimental effects of what they're doing is going to be interesting.
He's fired 12 inspector generals, I think they're called, which are people that are kind of impartial in various aspects of the government, as I understand it, who their job is to make sure that everything is done how it's supposed to be done, in accordance to, as you were pointing out, in accordance to rules and ways of doing things that have been fine-tuned over the years. Well, all those people are gone. And, so he's basically dismantling the safeguards that have been put in place for a reason.
I used to be a bit of a firebug. What do they call it? Not arsonist, but not far from it. But when I was a kid, I used to love lighting fires. And whenever you get a bonfire and you decide to poke it with the iron bar, you kill the embers. And eventually your fire gets weaker, not stronger. And the more you poke it, the worse the fire gets. So kind of like what I'm seeing here is, like maybe pick on a topic first rather than change the whole country in a day. Because, I mean, the people can't even keep up with the changes in the real world, It's just like...
I find it amazing as well that if you and I were to go to ChatGPT, or if we were to go to various mainstream media sources and quote anything that a lot of people who support this don't like, then we'll get accused of relying on fake news. This is the whole thing, that everything has been dismantled except for anything that is in agreement what these people agree with. So you can't come up with an opposing view. The fact that you came up with an opposing view means A, you're wrong, and B, you're misled and stupid. It's got here, I'm actually wrong, but it said in late January 2025, President Donald Trump dismissed at least 17 inspectors general, IGs, from various federal agencies, including the Departments of Defense, State, Veteran Affairs, and Interior. These officials, who serve as independent watchdogs to ensure accountability within government operations, were reportedly notified of their terminations via email, citing changing priorities as the reason for their dismissal. So these are independent people, watchdogs, to make sure that everything is done correctly, sacked. 17 of them. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. You know what I did with this video, Rob? I'm going to show you if I can. Funny enough, where are you going? Oop, there you go. I'll just show you. But with this one here, Doge. If I go to that, there, I'll just move this over to the side. So what I did, I got this video that you're looking at, and I put it into a program called Summarize, and it basically grabbed all the text that was in the video for all the text that they said. And it goes back, everything they said, and then I said, build me a description for my video. What happens when Donald Trump and Elon Musk take the stage together? Apparently, a new government agency, DOGE, Department of whatever, and claim to have uncovered billions of fraud. But this is under, was it distraction?
But is this just another distraction, a power grab, or something more sinister?
Yeah, so what I've done is I've got their words and I've used ChatGPT to describe what was said. Trump's speech was filled with wild claims. I haven't said this. This is what massive government corruption, dead people, cashing social security checks, and bureaucrats somehow making millions while holding low-paying government jobs. And Musk, he rambled about closing feedback loops and warned that America will go bankrupt unless drastic action was taken. But does any of this actually hold up under scrutiny? I mean, this is pretty clever stuff for a chat GPT, and this is going by their script, not manipulated by me whatsoever.
I think, you know, like there's an interesting thing in there because he was going on about there's people that are supposedly 150 years old who are still receiving social security checks. Well, okay, so let's say that's true. How many, Elon? You know, how much money does that add up to? But the thing here is that if that's been missed, if there's some flaw in the system of some of these agencies where there's either people on benefits who have died and there's no loop for that information to come back in to update these systems, or, as was proposed as well, where there could be contractors who had a 3-month contract but have still been receiving their money for 20 years. Well, first of all, how the hell would that happen? Because the contract would be for a finite amount of money. But let's say it was being paid per month and it just never got stopped. That's actually not evidence of fraud or anything like that. That's evidence that these government departments that they're trying to shrink were actually underfunded in the first place and didn't have enough people to actually check on these things.
Could be. Like my picture?
I did like your picture. I could tell it was AI. There was a subtle hint in there.
Yeah, so what I did for other people watching, I basically said, could you create me an image for this? And then it came back and said I wasn't able to generate an image because the request didn't follow the policy guidelines. So if we go back to, that's because Elon Musk was mentioned. Now, people can steal my identity and use it. But so then I told it to...
also, you can't ask it to do a specific person.
Well, it didn't seem that way because what I did is that when I got to the bottom, I said, could you create me an image for this? And that's all I wrote. And then it's come back and said no, basically, because of policy guidelines. If you like, I can create a more generic, what do they call it? Satanical? What do you even say it?
Satanical.
Satirical. Yeah, and then I ask it for all the keywords and all that sort of stuff. But I do think that's kind of funny because I was talking about this earlier on today on this video. I've got a website out here called dannydehek.org. And it's got my photos, my logo. It's got a blog. And in the blog, it actually tells you, hello, I'm Danny de Hek. I'm thrilled to introduce you as a new promoter of OneCoin. And I've wrote to GoDaddy, who hosts this, and they said that I'd have to get a court injunction to remove this information, even though I've proved that this is not me, but it's claiming it is me, and it's got my name. And I thought, how ironic is that? So I just sort of thought it was kind of funny that when you go and ask it to create an image, and obviously it's got Elon and Donald Trump in it, they've already got the celebrity status where it says, oh, we'll create something similar, but not the real. But that's definitely his dog.
The entities. Yeah, there's no copyright on the dog.
Yeah, that's right. He will be working on that next. All right, let's watch the end of this if you've got time. I can't figure out how to get back now. How do we get back here? Oh, there I am. Right, go back and listen to the rest of this. Don't you throw up. But yeah, interesting fact. I mean, I kind of wanted to have a say, but I didn't know whether I'm allowed to. But then I thought, oh, well, I might as well do something. And I knew it would attract you because you follow the stuff a bit better than me. All right, come on, Elon. Let's hear it. Now, the kid's quite funny about here. He starts sticking his fingers in Dad's ears and Dad can't hear.
Yes, correct. And we are moving fast, so we will make mistakes, but we'll also fix the mistakes very quickly. So,
do you see it as a worthy cause, USAID?
I think that there's some worthy things, but overall, if you say what is the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good.
So it's all business. This is all money, and it is actually quite breathtaking. So I mean, it's an uneducated opinion, isn't it?
Well, yeah, yeah. It is. It is completely ignorant opinion. He's basically saying, to use that analogy that I used before, that he can come into your business and make an instant determination on what you should or should not have spent money on, and whether he thought it should immediately stop or be banned. I haven't actually thought about this before, but Elon Musk is actually making a determination with zero experience in a lot of these agencies that he's going in, whether or not they should or should not have had that expenditure.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? I'm just trying to make myself look a bit more cooler there. Yeah, zero.
And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
I can just ask a follow-up to the Pentagon contracts. If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
And are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
The president said the other day that you might look at treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see or do you see right now in U.S. treasuries?
Yeah, I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills, or...
You also referenced treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Go ahead.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, really, the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting... Sorry for this. I thought my son might enjoy this, but he's sticking his fingers in my ears and stuff. So it's a bit hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. The stuff we're doing with Treasury Department is so basic that you can't believe it doesn't exist already. So for example, like I mentioned, just making sure that when a payment goes out, it has to have a payment categorization code. It's like, what type of payment is this? You can't just leave the field blank. Currently, many payments, the field is left blank. And you have to describe what's the payment for, some basic rationalization. That also is left blank. So this is why, the Pentagon, when's the last time the Pentagon passed an audit? I mean, a decade ago, maybe? Ever? Really?
Well, maybe they need to get better accountants because it sounds like somebody in the admin staff isn't reconciling properly.
Says who? Because the only person who said this, and let's go back, in the last 4 years, we didn't hear this from anybody in Biden's administration. And in the 4 years before that, we never heard this in Trump's administration. But now it's just all being created everywhere. So what was Trump doing in his previous 4 years?
Or maybe, yeah, because I think Weiss said this earlier on. I think when he got kicked out last time, he was so pissed off, he's now doing a witch hunt after the people that kicked him out made his life hell. He's going to say, well, I'm going to take your jobs. And now what are you going to do about that? It's like, he doesn't, if you, I don't know. I mean, if we're looking at dictators, because that's what we're talking about, I think, is these guys are, like we've got just go to Adolf Hitler then. These guys managed to get hold, and they got people in the country believing them so much that they got away with making lamps, what do they call it? Lampstands with human skin, whatever it was. But the shocking things that, Adolf Hitler did, and got away with it,
Yeah, well, in the 1930s, and I'm no authority on German history or anything like that, but there were, like a lot of terrible things that were going on that were fear-mongering amongst all of the people, and it meant that people acted in ways that they wouldn't normally act. Well, you think about what's happening here. If you were working in any of these departments where Doge people were coming in, Are you going to say anything against Donald Trump? Are you going to say anything against Elon Musk?
Too scared, wouldn't you?
You'd be too scared. So you're going to get
You're
massive
lose your
department
job and get
operating
shamed.
on fear. Yeah. You're not going to say a thing. So how well and how objectively are you going to do your job? But the other thing that I was thinking, that if you were a good person who was hunting around for a job and there was an opening, a vacancy in a government department, after hearing all this, would you go and work for the government?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it does seem like arrogance or what was the other thing I heard today, which was really something? There was something else they were going to do, which I thought, oh my goodness, not just the trucks, but there was some. It came to me before, but there's some other things that they're changing quite dramatically as well. They were going to open up all the UFO files and all the conspiracy theory stuff. So Helen's going, oh, that'd be interesting to know about the UFOs. And I'm going, oh, God, here we go. And then what else was it? It was something else they were going to, who killed JFK with that sort of files.
They were going to...
That's Elon to a T. He's probably gone back to Donald and said, hey, if I help you with this government crap, I want to know. I want you to tell us who killed JFK and release all the footage publicly or something. Is that the JFK one? Did I get that right?
Yep. I would be quite, because here's an interesting thing. Obviously, people have been talking about a conspiracy for years, or talking about covering up UFOs. And if you go to Joe Rogan, there was I'm laughing because it was so bizarre. There's a video on there where Joe's interviewing this guy who reckons that he had some job where they were reverse engineering stuff or something like that with UFOs that had crashed, etc. Oh, that's your mate.
He's been chatting me. Here you go, mate.
Oh my.
It's all right. Yeah, we'll put you on stage, so I'll just make you look a bit prettier. What do you think about this stuff? Because you're an American citizen.
I think it's completely wrong, brother. I can see what's going on, 100% what's going on. I stay ahead of all this. I have connections and I don't want to disclose these connections on here, but I'll do so privately for you. What I'm aware of, 100%. My question is, how do they have stuff like this going on when they have all these drones above New Jersey? They still have not addressed what these drones are. Where are these drones landing? I think there's like 10,000 of these drones. There's big drones, there's small drones. And I truly believe that Elon Musk is at the forefront of these drone situation. I don't think he's even, meanwhile, he's talking to, I sent you a video about him at West Point presenting the other day, talking about the future of warfare being drones, and saying, this is going to freak you out watching that interview. He's talking about fighter pilots being obsolete nowadays. And he also mentioned that interview that the Ukraine, think about this, is making 1 million drones, I believe, this year. Can you imagine 1 million drones? And with these drones, they shoot cubanoids, okay? There was an announcement that was brought to my attention where they actually are, and in Israel right now, they have these drones and they're targeting children. They're hunting children with these drones. And I'll provide that clip also. That was provided to me at a very high level right there. And I can't wait to share with you where this information is coming from. And they're hunting children. So I truly believe that they're going to be installing artificial intelligence programs into these drones to take out children, to wipe out the youth of potentially the United States, is what I'm thinking about. They're not even addressing where these drones are. I mean, how.
Why would they go after the children?
I think this is what's going. I think this is what's taking place. They're going to attack. I truly believe that they're going to attack the U.S. citizens with these drones. I truly believe this. I mean,
it doesn't sound like they've left them much choice. Going by, it sounds like Russia and America are going to work together.
Well, it's a very interesting situation. What I do know, I mean, if you think about this, the previous administration was very, determined to support, Zelensky over at Ukraine. And, and meanwhile, Elon is announcing that they're building 1 million drones. I mean, what are you going to do in a city with 1 million drones goes ahead and attack? 1 million drones, imagine that just going through the United States. 1 million drones this year being made by Ukraine? When Ukraine has more, we've been funneling all this money to Ukraine. When they have more Bitcoin, I think they're the top 3 country in the world that has more Bitcoin than anyone out there. So I think that this is all a complete publicity stunt where Elon, he's very into war. He says in the interview he sleeps with a war book by his bed, and he talks about the last war, not the next war. He's talking about the last war. And you watch his mannerisms. I see how you break down. I caught some of your thing for how to hop on the road, but when you break down his mannerisms, brother, and how he acts, he's laughing the whole entire way through this thing, talking to West Point about this.
And West Point's the American, what's that?
Yeah, it's an American military, academy for, I served in the Army. My father was a colonel. I served in the military for 9 years in the Army during college and stuff like this. So I'm go West Point though.
I know nothing about American politics and all this sort of stuff, so it's quite interesting. And I've got no opinion because I'm not American, but I get a lot of people going, "Oh, you should be having a look at this Elon Musk stuff." And I go, well, when I saw this, I thought, "Oh my goodness, you've got the 2 people on camera at the same time. They're not hiding anything." I'm thinking, is this an AI stunt? I don't know. So it's fascinating.
Elon Musk's children was at my friend's house in Washington, D.C. during my business partner's houses at Washington, D.C. during the presidential inauguration. I can't mention that name right now, but that's where Elon Musk's children were at. And I am in communication with head of security of this individual who's a very dear friend of mine. And to bring the information I can share with you privately, what is going on right now, because this is a Luciferian satanic thing is happening right now, and this is getting biblical with demons and drones changing and stuff like this. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and now these drones are showing up in California, shooting fire out of them and igniting these fires. No surprise to, and Trump doesn't even talk about that at all.
Yeah, I don't know enough to have an opinion really, but just it's scary as it is. Hey, I've got that video backed up after this one, but I've only got about another 5 minutes of this one to go, and then we'll have a look at it and see what it says. Where'd that video come from that you sent me?
That was issued about 4 or 5 days ago. I watched it twice. I could not believe what I was hearing, and and also just a heads up. What happened was, remember when at the Trump Tower, whatever it was, they exploded that Tesla. I mean, I want to know, first of all, I think there's 2 parts. That I'm talking about, that Tesla truck that blew up. And if you look at the tweets that Elon came out with after that happened, he was like laughing during these tweets, saying, this is, he was making a point to show that those trucks were bulletproof and bomb-proof. And so these drones that are flying in the air, I truly believe that Elon Musk is running that whole entire thing, and that he probably has these things in different countries also at the same time, tied to China. I do believe this as well, in that I think Elon has connections with China. Obviously, there's some stuff that happened, I think, a month ago or something like this, I believe, or something like this. So the bigger drones, remember they said that there's ones the size of cars. Those are big enough to hold the robots, and they're just like Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Okay, watch that right there. It's very interesting. They talk about the Russia. I watched it. I hadn't seen Terminator 2 since I was 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, but we saw you on a video the other day. We did see you on a video the other day that I found on your YouTube channel, and you were going around talking to the Bali police as Steve Connors. Was it Steve Connors? John Connors. That's right. Yeah. What were you doing that for?
Because I have enough information at this point to go ahead. I was completely sober. I have enough information, and when I show this information to you privately, this is high-level military information, obviously. And you saw me. I didn't care. I was fully trying to get a hold of these guys. These guys are like puppets. They don't even care. So I'm, I have other governments I'm going to right now. Go ahead.
You spent 10 minutes trying to get a reaction from them. And did you ever get a reaction from any of the Bali police?
I have connections with Bali royal family, and I have connections with the police department, and also easy access to the military. I just have to take the right channels. But I'm going a different route with this, with USA ambassadors.
Yeah, but you were walking around telling these police that America is under attack, and you were also telling them that you were an American, you work for the American government. But they still didn't. You still didn't get a reaction from them. It was amazing.
It truly was. I mean, it's not like I just escalated this thing. I went very, calmly up to him at first. You saw the whole entire thing. I went to every single one of them. It wasn't like I was a deranged drunk running down the road here. I was showing a United States government passport ID. They didn't know the difference. I lied to them, telling them I was, government official, just to get their attention because I had a U.S., a passport ID that is, real. And they just refused to listen. These guys are just, hurry up and wait.
You are about a foot taller. You are about a foot taller. You were about a foot taller than any of those Balinese policemen, though. So maybe they were just intimidated. But I thought, yeah, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. All right, mate. We'll carry on listening to this one. Feel free to stick around. We've only got about 5 minutes of this one. Then we'll have a quick look at this other one if we've got time. But you're awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, exposing this. When you see the information that I have, you guys, no one else in the entire world has the information that I have right now. I promise you this. And I want to talk to you about the satanic ritual that took place at the Super Bowl. I mean, think about this. That was sponsored by Apple 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. Apple is hooked up with Starlink. Okay, they just announced that. I'm getting rid of the apples, and I encourage everyone to do that as well. There is something that's going to be happening to the chips within the Apple, and also all the droids, where they're embedding a frequency. What's that? Okay, it's okay, thank you. So where they're embedding a certain frequency from the Super Bowl into the chips.
Oh, they're gone. Into the chips. Just had a bowl of chips.
Oh, well, there goes my MacBook.
I think, yeah, I know. And also, I think Starlink just cut him off. Yeah.
Good one.
All right. I'll play the rest of this video while he might come back.
And we want to just, in order to actually pass audits, you have to have financial information that allows you to trace the payments. And once in a while, the Treasury has to pause payments if it thinks the payment is going to a fraudulent organization. Like if a company or an organization is on a do not pay list, we should not pay it. I'm sure you would agree. Like if it's quite hard to get on that payment, the do not pay list, it means that this is someone that is like dead people, terrorists, known fraudsters, that kind of thing. We should not pay them. But currently we do.
I really like that. That's what got me interested about doing this video. Known fraudsters, we're not going to pay them. Go after people, not just the ones in the government. Go after the ones outside the government. Tammy Jackson.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is that in the next breath, because I've actually heard this a little bit as well, is that in the next breath he goes on that because of the systems that a lot of these agencies had in place, that a lot of the stuff got paid because these people that should have been, or groups that should have been on the do not pay list, didn't happen. It doesn't happen for a long time. Well, isn't that a budget problem, that you do not have enough money to put all the people and systems in place? Yeah, like this is the whole thing, that the people who are best equipped to make efficiencies and to change priorities are the employees.
Mm-hmm.
They are the employees, and yet the employees are the ones who are being having the finger pointed at. They're being made redundant. They're being asked to lay off. Whole manner of things. And these people who are coming in, like Elon Musk and his, I was going to say drones after listening to that before.
I don't know. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, Microsoft certified trainer said, I'm sorry, Danny, no offense to you, but I'm out. I don't know that was because Ryan wasn't here, but
yeah,
he's been messaging me the last couple of days telling me that I'm in serious trouble and he's coming after me. And then he wanted to have a chat, so I thought I'll chuck him online and see what he's got to say. But you know, I like a conversation.
Do you know that there has not been one iota that you've heard out of Elon Musk about anybody who works in any of these agencies who actually knows what they're doing? And can you how can you imagine that that's true? Because a lot of these people are put into positions where they are supposed to be independent. They are independent, and yet Trump's gone around and sacked the independent, the inspector generals that are the watchdogs. And you think, oh, this just doesn't make sense.
It is like enemies in the building, isn't it? It's like they've managed to get themselves in the White House. I mean, and the whole lot's, I mean, like technically speaking, who's going to fix this? The military or some, like a vigilante who's going to come in here and clean up the White House, but it's just like, at the end of the day, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough, but to me, this is like the very scary and disruptive. And also, I think their hidden agenda isn't that hidden.
I cannot for the life of me, and this is where it gets actually quite sad. I cannot for the life of me see how anybody could actually look at this, what's going on, and condone it the way that it's being done. And again, I'm not talking about trying to maximize efficiencies. Everybody wants to do that. Like there are people who go to work who are in management roles, executive roles. Your whole being is about making a difference, about improving things, about making everything more efficient. See, who the hell goes to work to actually make something inefficient or be corrupt or whatever? It's inherent in human nature that you want to improve something each day. That's why you go to work. Not everybody, but a lot of people. But this is being like, if you're a government employee, you must be evil kind of thing. and it just doesn't make any sense. I did want to say one thing about the drones, because while I'm on a roll here, in one notable case, and remember that this is the American government that we're talking about, who have sponsored everything that's happened in Gaza by Israel. And it says, in one notable case, on January the 10th, 2025, a drone strike in the northern Gaza Strip reportedly killed 4 Palestinian children who were playing near their home. Eyewitnesses claimed that the drone targeted the area without any prior warning. The Israeli Defense Forces stated that the strike was aimed at neutralizing militants preparing to launch rockets into Israel, and expressed regret over civilian casualties. There were children. There's heaps of reports of children who were actually targeted. They weren't like collateral damage. And you just think when Trump comes out, he must read this stuff, or he must get reports on this stuff, and so did Biden. And this is actually, sadly, where part of the Western world has been now. And yet Trump comes out, well, if Hamas don't release their hostages, then essentially all hell should break loose. And of course he wants to take over Gaza. Now think about this, anybody out there. He wants to take over Gaza, which is against international law. How can you actually come up with that and then be against Russian, who are basically trying to take over Ukraine? It's, on the face of it, the same thing. And yet over there they're supporting Ukraine, and yet down here they're actually doing something which is not dissimilar to what Russia are doing against Ukraine. So not too sure how those two marry up.
What is your position on BitHarvest, Rob?
I have no position on BitHarvest.
No, but it's been going for a year now, so it must be real. Right, let's carry on with the other stuff we're doing today. Right, let's listen to Elon. Maybe we look at this video if we get some time. How do I press K?
Which is crazy. We should stop that.
Many transactions. And by the way, hundreds, thousands of transactions like that. We have a big team. And
so he's put that big team together in a hurry, eh?
For the sake of the country, I hope that the person that's in charge and the other people that report to me that are in charge are allowed to do the right thing, namely make sure everything's honest, legitimate, and competent. But we're looking at just when you look at USAID, that's one. We're going to look at the military. We're going to look at education. They're much bigger areas, but the USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent, and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying or that things are honest that they're paying. And nobody can even believe this. Other people, law professors, they've been saying, how can you take that person's right away? You're supposed to be running the country, but we're not allowed to look at who they're paying it to and what they're paying. We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
Yes.
And it's going to go to numbers that you're not going to believe. And much, as I said, much is incompetence and much is dishonesty. We have to catch it. And the only way we're going to catch it is to look for it. And if a judge is going to say you're not allowed to look for it, that's pretty sad for our country. I don't understand how it could even work.
On the buyout program, can you personally guarantee that...
Which one?
The buyout program, the offer to federal workers. Can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through September?
They'll get their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout. And what we're trying to do is reduce government. We have too many people. We have office space. It's occupied by 4%. Nobody's showing up to work because they were told not to. And then Biden gave them a 5-year pass, some of them, 48,000 of them, gave them a 5-year pass, that for 5 years you don't have to show up to work. And let me tell you, this is largely, much of this stuff is because of Biden. It's his fault. He allowed this country, what he did on our border. What he did on our border is almost not as bad as what he did with all of these contracts that have come out. It's a very sad day when we look at it. I can't even believe it. But many contracts just extend, and they just keep extending, and there was nobody there to correct it. And that cannot be, I can't imagine that could be held up by the court. Any court that would say that the president or his representatives, like Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, whatever, doesn't have the right to go over their books and make sure everything's honest. I mean, how can you have a country? You can't have anything that way. You can't have a business that way. You can't have a country that way. Hey, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
I don't know. I mean, it's bully tactics.
That judge put a hold on that because I think there were 2 unions who sued trying to protect the interest of the employees and arguing that what was happening could have been a breach of, I can't remember what you call it now, but essentially unconstitutional. A breach between, there's a word for it. What is it? The legal challenges primarily revolved around concerns that the administration's actions, i.e. Trump, violated constitutional principles, including the separation of powers and the Take Care clause. Critics argue that the executive branch overstepped its authority by attempting to unilaterally dismantle a congressionally established agency without proper legislative approval. So, you know, whether that's right or wrong, the judges obviously thought there's a case there. And so what's the judge supposed to do? This could be illegal. I'll let it go. I'll let it go and then we'll look at it later. No, you don't do that.
Weird. Hold up.
Mark Fogel will be at the White House tonight at about 10 o'clock. If you want to come over, you can say hello to him.
Did the U.S. give anything in return?
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. Scary. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost, in terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time. We got to stop that war. And I'm interested primarily from the standpoint of death. We're losing all those soldiers. And they're not American soldiers, they're Ukrainian and Russian soldiers. But you're probably talking about 1.5 million. I think we got to bring that one to an end. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
go through.
Thank
Quickly,
you for
guys.
moving.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
X, are you
He's
okay?
talking about
This is X.
Boom. Sorry about that.
he's talking about 1.5 million death of soldiers, and yeah, he comes out in the same breath and says that essentially Israel ought to attack Gaza and let all hell break loose, and most of the people that are dying over there aren't soldiers, they're women and kids.
Yeah. See, I just can't comprehend all this stuff. It's just, yeah. I don't know if this is, no offense to you, Ryan, if you're listening, but I don't know whether this next video is conspiracy theorists or propaganda or whatever, and I'm not endorsing anything I'm about to play, but it's called West Point. So they've got 72,000 survive. What do they call it? Never watched this before. I'll just see if it's inside.
I just want to make a comment here to Crypto Zen. You can stick your view right up where the sun doesn't shine, mate. Because I'll tell you what, all around the world, there are people who are like you who are saying, oh, you should stick to what you know. And yet in the same breath, whether it's been COVID, any conspiracy theory, or anything political like this, you will go and get your news off of any Tom, Dick and Harry that suits your narrative off of the online. But when someone else has a say that you obviously don't agree with, you say, oh, I think you should stick to your scams. Well, Danny can stick to his scams or talk about anything because it's a free world. And yet all these people who are talking about democracy, all right, they all want to limit people down to whatever suits the narrative for them. Okay? So if you don't like it, bugger off.
And I do bust scams. So I'm interested in somebody who calls a scam, even if it is Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And after all, as our critics say, Rob, we're just here for clicks. So we're not allowed to have an opinion.
And he's only done it for the dollar.
Yeah, I'm after the money.
No.
It's friggin' 1 o'clock in the morning here in New Zealand. We'll just have a quick look at this, Rob. See what this shit is. I don't know what it is.
We will show you a different side of West Point, where we will make even our most complex initiatives accessible to broad audiences and give you an inside view to our cross-disciplinary work, which is being applied throughout the world.
Mr. Musk, thank you very much for being here, sir. We appreciate it.
It's an honor to be here. Yeah, it's really a great honor.
Well, we're really excited for you to help us kick off our intellectual theme, Human and the Machine, which is leadership on the emerging battlefield. And we want to make sure that the Academy and the cadets are focused on not tomorrow,
in the
but
middle,
the next
Rob.
20, 30, 40 years. And underlying the entire theme is an emphasis on the importance of
put you on the
preparing
desk.
cadets for future warfare and really
Apparently-
where humans and machines intersect. And it's as if your background was made for this theme. However, I actually talked to quite a few people, and they really don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So,
Neither do I.
yeah. So I thought I should tell people a little bit about your bio.
Who am I?
Yeah, who are we really? Yeah, you'll make a company that figures it out, sir. All right. So if you don't know, and this is ridiculous, of course you know, but I'm going to do it anyways. Elon Musk, sitting next to me, co-founded and leads X, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink. Here's my favorite as an academic, The Boring Company. Oh, that was good. That was good. Come on.
Yeah, I started as a joke,
Yeah, it did.
and now it's real.
Well, it's awesome. By the way, you have a new company also, XAI.
Yeah.
And that's all of them unless you started one this morning I don't know about. I'm not sure, right? But basically what this means is everybody in this room has the opportunity, based on these companies, to drive a futuristic electric truck through a gigantic underground tunnel while using a digital connection in their brain to start a rocket while simultaneously getting updates on Army football. His innovations have revolutionized electric vehicles, batteries, space exploration, advanced human-machine interactions, made information access to information instantaneous, and have started to help integrate AI throughout our daily lives. After the convocation, I'm hoping to have a little bit of time so you can give me some personal tips, because somehow you have founded and lead multiple companies, you're a father to multiple children, and I'm exhausted after 2 hours of coaching one kid's sport. That's
Sure.
it. So whatever you can do to help me out, I'd appreciate it. So we have cadets and staff and faculty who can speak on multiple disciplinary perspectives that would interest you. Drone swarms, electric batteries, molecular brain science, engineering, psychology, philosophy, law, Chinese language. But that's just the start. I think this one's particularly relevant. because we can even cover the intense science of boxing with our world-class Department of Physical Education, just in case, you never know, some random head of state challenges you to a fight.
You know, I did challenge Putin to a one-on-one combat.
Did he take it?
No, and then I was like, I actually on, the FK Twitter, I said I hereby challenge Vladimir Putin to one-on-one combat. And I made sure to use his name in Russian Cyrillic, and then I said, and the stakes are Ukraine, and the use for Ukrainian Cyrillic, and then the people thought I wasn't serious. I'm like, no, I'm absolutely serious. I mean, he has he's good at judo, I hear.
It's quite scary, isn't it? That you're toying with another country leader to play a Space Invader game and have the stakes as, Romania, Ukraine. I mean, to me, that's kind of like, I don't even think that's funny. So is it just war games? Are they warmongers? What is it? I don't know.
Look, I don't know. And the crazy thing is that for a lot of the things that Elon Musk has done, I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I respect him, and I've even got his bloody book, although my dad borrowed it, so I've never actually got to read it. But but then he comes out with the stuff that we've heard recently. You go, oh, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I look up to the guy as well. And I have also, it's one of the few books I've listened to. I haven't listened to the last 2 chapters, but it's a 6.5 hour listen. So it's a big, massive book, and it's informative how they, what they do to fund these businesses and how they gamble everything time and time again and come out the other side just, like when they were going to sell out to Google, was it, for like 750 million or something stupid like that, and then something changed where the share market changed and they got enough investors in to keep them going, and you hear those stories and you think, wow, that's amazing. But most people wouldn't have multiple stories, or even, the old PayPal days and how the highs and lows of that. It's a fascinating entrepreneurial journey he's had. But now does he get to that stage where he's not a philanthropist, but he's at that stage where he just wants to leave a legacy at, you don't know these guys, they get bored. They do drugs as well, and now they start doing other things that we wouldn't even think of. But maybe when you get ridiculously rich, you decide that you're world domination, or who knows? I don't know. I mean, Putin, has it gone to his head, all the money that he's got?
Well, I think the crazy thing is when like, for example, you're talking about efficiency, government efficiency, and then you got Elon Musk and Donald Trump who are holding this basically live interview, and you think, well, didn't they have anything better to do?
Yeah.
And I think it would be, the pay-per-view alone on that would be incredible.
I could get everybody in here to start chanting 2 men in or 1 man leaves.
Yeah.
2 men in or 1 man leaves. So, but
I watched that and I'm in it.
So I will tell you that our 31st superintendent, Douglas MacArthur, once said, there's no substitute for victory.
Yeah.
And when it comes to fighting, it's not just our military, but it's also the whole country and the whole industrial base.
Yes.
That's so important. And you've innovated across so many areas, whether it's beneath our surface, outer space, and everything in between. And we're, again, truly, truly grateful for you to be here as we start to talk about some of these things that you've been working on. And as you look into the audience, I just want to give you a bit of context. A lot of these are the leaders who will face our nation's most complex and difficult challenges going forward. We have our cadets who will serve as Army officers, leading hundreds and eventually thousands of soldiers through this complexity that we talk about. And we also have our faculty, and who are preparing them to do just what I just said, lead through these complex situations. And many of our faculty will also re-enter the Army and be required to lead. Thank you for taking the time to help us think deeper and inform us as we start to inform our cadets on how we can be successful, not just fighting, but winning in the contemporary and future battle space. So let me start with this broad question. How do you see warfare transforming in the future?
The biggest effect, I think, by far is AI and drones. So the next, well, in fact, the current war in Ukraine is very much a drone war already. It's sort of a contest between Russia and China to see who can deploy the most number of drones. Now, if there's a major power war, it's very much going to be a drone war. It's going to be drones and AI. And, it's a sort of, I do worry about the existential risk of AI, which is that if you employ AI and drones, do you go down this path where eventually you get to Terminator, try to avoid that.
That'd be good.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Minimize the Terminator risk. But essentially, when you're making military drones, you are making Terminators.
Moving around.
And when I think you'll somewhat be forced into at least giving the drone localized AI, because if the AI is far away, it can't control as well as localized AI. So,
what do you mean by localized AI?
Meaning it's autonomous killing machine.
Completely autonomous.
Well, you give it the okay
in
a particular arena, and it goes
with certain parameters.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Do you think our adversaries will have those same type of concerns or limitations?
Well, yeah. It depends on how much existential risk there is in these wars. So if it's a regional war, I think it'll be more tempered. If it goes beyond a regional war, then it's all bets are off, and then you start deploying things that you really wouldn't want to deploy. So hopefully, that doesn't happen.
But you said it, and I would agree that if you just look at the contemporary conflicts that are taking place, you would agree that machines aren't just disrupting warfare; they're now commonplace.
Drones are going to be overwhelmingly what matters in any between any powers that have significant technology. It's so. My personal belief is that it'll actually be, I think, probably too dangerous to have humans at the front. It's drones at the front.
And it's too dangerous.
Drones don't miss.
Because of the lethality, then. It's too dangerous to have humans at the front.
Yes. If you've seen some of the computer-controlled sniper rifles, they just don't miss. So you're fighting a machine that's gonna, aim with micron-level accuracy, and never gets tired.
So how do you think the United States should be leveraging technology to further our national defense?
Well, I think we probably need to invest in drones. The United States is strong in terms of the technology of the items, but the production rate is low. So it's a small number of units, relatively speaking, but with basically, I think there's a production rate issue. Like the rate, if you say like how fast can you make drones? It's like if you say there's a drone conflict, the outcome of that drone conflict will be how many drones does each side have in that particular skirmish times the kill ratio. So if you've got, you can have let's say the United States would have a set of drones that have a high kill ratio, but then the other side has far more drones. If you've got a 2-to-1 kill ratio, the other side has 4 times as many drones, you're still going to lose.
Do you think our industrial base can scale to make the volume of drones that you're talking about?
I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. That is, it can scale, but it is not currently scaling.
Why would that be?
I think the procurement is still. I read a lot of military history and actually the thing that I go to sleep with is usually an audio book on military history of one kind or another. So I find the subject very interesting. And one of the things that tends to happen
you wouldn't want to scale your production of drones because, whatever you make today is going to be obsolete tomorrow. If, like in a month or 2 or 3 months from now, the technology exists to have a drone that fires further or travels faster, then it wouldn't matter really how many drones you've got in stock. He does raise an interesting point, and the thing that pops into my head, don't know if it pops into you, is kind of like when you're watching Star Wars. You don't really see people fighting or whatever. You just see all these machines that are fighting, and like what happens? Like all your drones die. Does that mean that you have won the game of chess, or do the drones now come after the humans?
What happens if all the Teslas in the world have got a kill switch?
Well, this is one of the crazy things is that, if we're going to be driving electric cars and, like maybe electric planes and, everything else is going to be a smart device, then hacking, like they even reckon now that hacking from China and from Russia is one of the greatest threats that they can take over and do damage without leaving home.
I just want to go back to just reading Crypto Zen's comment here. He's got, your scam fighting is great, but you guys are acting way out of line. Stick to your core. What the hell does that mean?
I mean, and how many times have we hit? Well, I don't know about you. I've heard that so many times, mate, because it's all these people that don't want to be challenged on anything. And, before we came online, I probably got primed up because that video that we were just watching on Elon and
Trump.
Donald, that was actually played on another channel, Farhad or whatever it was, and I was watching that. It was sliced up. My God, read the comments on that. They were scary as fuck. Excuse me. They were so scary. It's like 100% blind support for stuff. And, it's so scary because if you challenge any of this, you get personally attacked. And it's like all these people, if they meet you face to face, would be nice as pie and really polite. But when they go online, they just fire heaps of bullets and they talk to you as if you're stupid. And it's because you don't agree with them. And that's exactly what we've got down there with that comment in the chat, which probably people can't see online. I'm not too sure, but
well, we don't need to put it online, but I don't care. I'm sure you don't either. I mean, personal insults, stick to your stuttering. Why don't you tell me to keep reading words wrong and keep being dyslexic? But I'm not allowed to have an opinion when I spend 70 or 80 hours of my week going after scammers who live, the majority of them live in either in America.
yeah, well, a lot of the scammees, the ones that are in scams, will attack you for having an opinion, but they'll never come and have a debate. And even tonight, we haven't seen anybody who's actually come in here who's pro Trump or anything like that have a debate so that we can actually talk specifics. No one does it.
Yeah, and also, like if you're a Donald Trump supporter, fine. If you're an Elon Musk supporter, fine. But let's have so what if you want to believe in something? Because this is what I got brought up in a religious cult, and we were told to believe that all the righteous people were going to inherit the earth, and all the unrighteous people were going to be destroyed. And we were told by the organization that led us to believe and trust everything they say. And their evidence for believing was all interpreted from the Bible. So if you didn't believe the Bible, you wouldn't be a Jehovah's Witness. But it's same here. It's actually like this other comment we've got here. Elon is a legend. I don't really care if he's a legend or an idiot, but if he has an influence in the world and can manipulate things for maybe selfish gain, I don't know. Or like this video here, I'm not going to watch the whole lot because we've got to go to bed. But this is telling me that Elon Musk reads war stories when he goes to bed, and he could be a warmonger. Now, if he reads history books, I mean, Winston Churchill to me is a hero in a way because he's portrayed that way maybe in the media. I don't know enough to have a real opinion about anyone. But I liked when Winston Churchill was accused of being drunk by a lady in an audience. he fired back a witty comment and said, "You are ugly, but I will be sober in the morning." Those sort of witty comments I could see, I quite like that. So, and he's come out with tons of quotes. So I admire the guy for his quotes. I don't really follow the warmongering stuff he did or the decisions he's made. I'm not a historic. But when Elon's been studying this, do you think Elon wants to leave a legacy? And has he ever been in a better position than now to implement his legacy? And if you listen to his historic drive as an entrepreneur, it could be a very dangerous situation that the world's in if he's got an influence and he's a warmonger. I mean, maybe his Tesla factories now become drone factories and he drops the cars. Who knows? And, this could be a shift that the world didn't see coming. And with the backing of Donald Trump, he didn't give Donald Trump $40 million a month for no reason, did he?
Yeah, it is bizarre. And if you were to listen to Trump and if you were to listen to Musk, it's not dissimilar to actually if you and I are on one of these videos and we get a little bit excited, what comes out of our mouths? We just talk about whatever the first thing that pops off the top of our head. And this is what we're seeing here. And yet, if you're in the real world and you're subject to normal restraints and you're in some kind of leadership position, you do have to hold yourself back because you're actually talking for everybody in the room. And one of your underlying goals of being a leader is to keep everybody together and rowing in the same direction. And obviously here you've got the Republicans rowing in one direction and the Democrats rowing in completely the opposite direction. But like a lot of the rest of the world is rowing in an opposite direction. And one of the crazy things that just popped into my head when you're talking about that is a few years ago, and I don't know if you can remember this, but there was a big rally overseas somewhere. Could have been in the UK, I'm not too sure. And there was a massive blow up Donald Trump. And everyone was taking the piss out of Trump, that he had small hands and what that meant for his appendage and all this kind of stuff. Well, that came up at a dinner party that I was in. And I defended Trump. And I wasn't necessarily defending Trump himself, but I was defending the concept of that these were parents that were criticizing a person based on attributes that they'd been born with, And I said, if your kids were listening to this and they went to school and then they started to criticize other kids at school based on attributes that those kids were born with, like the color of their skin or whether they're tall, short, fat, thin, whatever, I said, you'd think that was abhorrent, but because this is Donald Trump, it's open slather. So I was actually defending that kind of mentality. And actually for a while, in even his first term, I was actually pro-Trump, and then that changed with a couple of impeachments, or one impeachment in particular. So it is weird when you hear someone like Elon Musk, who generally I think has done a fantastic job, and I really respect how he communicates and what he does and a lot of things, and then he comes up with something like this and you, good grief.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I think we're allowed to go in whatever direction we get dragged in a way. I'm like at the very start of this, Donald Trump started talking about how he was talking to the king of something, and then he talked about them as those people, and just that terminology is something, to me it sounds like it's disrespectful. It's literally like schoolboy tactics. As you got that fly. It's like the bully in the playground is actually the one who wants to be the big kid. And the guy that stole your marbles in the playground would be Donald Trump. And then he shows no remorse. He just wants to have all the marbles. Doesn't know what he's going to do with the marbles, but just, it comes like a pissing competition who's the biggest and who's the bravest, who's the ugliest. I don't know, but it's just not ethics and values and all those sort of stuff. I'd like to think we need those in the world. I don't know. I mean, it's just a scary time for everyone, really.
I think that is one of the things that probably does grate me, is that imagine if you were like a leader, whether you were a manager, a boss, or a CEO, and you're actually anywhere in the world, and you're listening to Donald Trump right now. So if you were going to use Donald Trump or Elon Musk as a role model, two billionaires, which in individualistic societies and capitalist societies are like the pinnacle. They've reached the top echelon, the top 0.1%. If you walked into most businesses tomorrow and made accusations like those two are, man, the whole workplace would disintegrate. So they're both leaders, and they should be role modeling in some kind of way. And it just, I don't know, because you either express yourself like I do from time to time, or what? Or what? Because, what's the option of not expressing yourself? You shut up and you just don't say anything at all, because there's that quote about all that is required for evil to rule is for good people to say nothing.
Yeah. I think not everyone wants to be on camera and have an opinion. And, it fascinates me. It does. I feel like I should have an opinion. I should have a say. I'm not having a say because I'm somebody. I'm nobody. But does it affect me? Does it worry my brain what happens in America? Yes, it does. And does it affect my business and my income? Well, I'm sure it will. So why can't I have an opinion, and why can't I show my concerns? And why do I have to be bullshit and stand one way or the other? Why can't I be for Trump or against Trump? Why can't I say I used to admire? There was a guy that used to, a YouTuber, he's got 600,000 subscribers, and he had a go at CoffeeZilla. And then I decided that I didn't like this guy anymore. But the guy had given me a lot of help, Cornelius was his name. And, and it's sort of like, well, if, everyone makes mistakes, so you got to be forgiving. But I'm not staunch enough to say I do or I don't. I'm just like saying this is how it's affecting me today. I didn't want to do anything really political because I'm not a political person. And I don't think I should have to stay in my lane because this affects me. If somebody's accusing somebody of being a scammer, it interests me. And I'm allowed an opinion, and I'll have an opinion. I'm not going to push my views down your throat, Rob, and I know you don't do the same. You never have. You reason, we have an open discussion, we get people thinking, and we might come up with a brain fart along the way. And then all of a sudden we find out that there's some, like if, let's just say Donald Trump and Elon Musk, is that the same person, Donald Trump? Yeah, they come up with some evidence of some sort and they put it on the table, and somebody speaks up and says, look, this is what I was doing. I was, but before we see that, it's hard to believe hearsay. And if Judge Judy was watching this, she would say, well, where's the evidence? You've just made a claim. Show me the evidence. I mean,
Yeah, it's the same type of mentality. Like if you took what we just heard before, and if you take all of those statements that are basically delivered without giving any specifics as to exactly how much, without giving any specifics to any investigations, without telling who's been charged with anything, so basically at this point, nobody, and I checked it, nobody's been charged with anything. And yet there's all these claims of absolute corruption, fraud, blah, blah, blah. So it just, I don't totally understand why some of the, I don't totally understand why some of this does wind me up, but I do know that what Trump said today about Gaza really wound me up. So that's a 10 out of 10 because I thought that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard from an American president, full stop. And I just think that's a total disrespect of human life when you've got, and I find it amazing that ceasefire happened over there when Hamas agreed to release the hostages and Israel agreed to release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. But those Palestinian prisoners, as far as I know, are being released into Gaza, which is kind of like going from one prison into another, you know? And
So-
if the if that ceasefire fell over, where would you rather be? Would you rather be in an Israeli prison or in Gaza with bombs dropping?
Those prisoners that he was talking about, I didn't quite follow that, but they were prisoners that were released. Whose prisoners were they? Not American citizens. Were they people from Gaza that they were released from prison?
Well, I don't actually know all the ins and outs, but what I do know is that Hamas have still got, and I couldn't remember a number, I read something today, but their claims, without going into all of the gory details, is that Israel aren't upholding their part of the agreement to the ceasefire. And so Hamas decided that announced that they weren't going to release the next 3 hostages on Saturday coming up until the part of the ceasefire that Israel was supposed to be upheld was upheld. Who would even know whether that's true, like Hamas's claims, because you can't even have any reporter in Gaza, so they're banned from Gaza, so it is quite bizarre. But the Palestinian prisoners are ones that Israel have, and I'm assuming some of them are political prisoners. I don't really know the makeup. But yeah, it must be actually pretty scary to actually go out of prison. And I wonder whether any of them have a choice to actually stay in prison in Israel or to be free in Gaza. I'd be quite fascinated to know what most people would choose if they had that choice.
I watched, actually, I read in the paper, I did a video a few days ago about how they've turned the power off in these human trafficking compounds. And that everyone's oh, that's great, and it's stopping the scammers. And I'm thinking, yeah, but what about the people that are held under duress in these 5 or 6 different human trafficking compounds? Are these people being killed? Do they have mass graves? Are they going to find all sorts of shit? That everything, every action has a reaction. I'm quite a strong believer of that sort of stuff. So that's I think of all the businesses that have just been found out today that they won't be able to deliver steel to America anymore because it's uneconomical. But Trump doesn't seem to care about that because he wants America to be great again.
Everybody could just get on, and like I've had a lot of these conversations with a guy that I went to school with who actually lives in America, and he's like completely true blue American now, and it's good having him as a friend because he can have a conversation with me and give me an insight into how Americans can view some of these things. He was one who, even though he's not a supporter of Trump, he said that he couldn't see how Trump could not get elected, and that was months before the election. I thought he was joking, but he knew exactly what was going on. And as he points out, he said a lot of these international issues are bloody complex, and a lot of what America gets criticized for by various people, including myself, are actually necessary in order to achieve an end result. But, there's just some stuff that you think is over the line, and you just wish you could actually wake up one day and there's no wars, and what Trump was saying at the end of that video that he I can't remember how he worded it, but is essentially hoping that the Ukraine-Russia war would be over and it would save heaps of lives. Yeah, I totally agree. I just wish that same approach was used everywhere. You know, and I know that's naive, as my mate would say. It is naive, but that's, you know, like everybody needs a dreamer.
Well, it's kind of like a game of chess by the sounds of it. You forfeit a player so that you can, have access to another checkmate or something stupid like that, isn't it? All right, Rob. Well, I've had enough. I'm not going to watch the end of that video, but that was quite scary. I didn't really realize a lot of these guys who get wealthy, though, do seem to have a love for war, which is scary. And I always think, what was the main president that was it Bush? Was he the warmonger? What was the guy that was really into the wars?
Well, yeah, at the time, George W. And his team were quite quick to get into that war too. I can't even remember all the ins and outs now after 9/11. And of course, a lot of the evidence that they, like, or a lot of the statements that they said about why they went to war proved not to be true. But, then there's, a thing attached to that, like Guantanamo Bay, which is, like, again, was a place that was set up to, I'm not too sure if circumvent laws was the right thing, but, they couldn't hold them on the mainland of the United States. And, there's all these kind of, like around the edges and grey areas, and you think, I just wish people that were role models were on less shaky ground.
Don't know, mate. It's it's interesting. All right, mate. Interesting is all I can really say about it, but I'm glad we had a bit of a chat about it. I sort of wanted to have an opinion about it. Wanted to see what people thought about it. So if you're listening to this in the rerun, post your comment. Tell us what you think. Should I have stayed in my lane and not have how I look at it? Am I a layman who's just watched something and I thought I'd give my 2 cents worth? And we all have to live on the same planet. I think the world has actually become a better place since, if we go back to World War I and II, I can't even imagine the whole world being at war, let alone thinking, since 1944, is that when the Second World War finished? So
1945, yeah.
Yeah, so let's think, that's how many years ago? 80 years ago was the last war. All right. We've got past that stage where we need wars. But if you go back to, history, there's been kings who have fought for the land. And, if you think about, I don't know how this all works, but Russia is trying to obviously take over the land of Ukraine, is it? And it's a land
war. Well, who would know how to
So it's a bit weird, isn't it? All right, mate, I'm going to call it quits. You're awesome. Thanks for being here. Maybe we can next time we see something interesting on Twitter or X, we can have our 2 cents worth and tell people how we feel. It's good night for me.
You might have a poll to see that it's okay that we're allowed to talk on something. Yeah,
well, we did actually have a poll. The poll was, is Trump and Musk DOGE plan genius or another political crisis act? And then we got 47% of people said the total genius, trust the plan. 13% another billionaire power grab. More confusing than crypto, 13%, and 27% just here for the chaos. So it wasn't really a good poll. I actually asked ChatGPT to make that one, but I don't know. Maybe we didn't give people a 50-50 chance. Maybe I should have had 4 options, for or against. We would have got more interesting.
Might have viewed.
Yeah. All right, mate. I'm going to click goodbye. It's good night from him, and it's good night from me. The two Ronnies. See you, everyone. Thanks for tuning. Make sure you subscribe and like the channel. We'll see you in the next broadcast.